Right, Nithya. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for allowing us to have a conversation with you. It's amazing to have you on Luhn Podcast, which is the Luhn Impact. The purpose of this is we want to find more and more people like you, how you really impact society and create value, and find people to find their own gift and find their purpose in life, which is, I believe, is the most important thing in today's day and age, because I start to see more and more people are getting distracted. There's so much of communication taking place through social media and any form of online, and AI coming in, people are interacting and asking questions and so on and so forth. But often I start to see that human element is deteriorating in terms of like people start to lose their confidence. They believe that, am I good enough because technology is there to replace me? Am I going to get replaced? Is my intelligence is surpassed by technology, and so on and so forth? So these are the constant battle that a lot of people face, and especially for the younger generations. They start to find in our age, when we were in our early 20s or maybe in our teenage times, we knew exactly what we want to take, which path that we want to take in our careers. But now I start to see with younger generations, they find it quite challenging to fix their mind whether they want to take that specific path, with that path will be relevant in the next 5-6 years down the line. Let's let alone forget about lifelong. So, and when I also try to I wanted to make an introduction of what you have, but I think it'll take my entire time, which is allocated for the podcast, to explain what you have really created over the years. It's just amazing stuff, and I'm really deeply touched and honored to have you. So Nithya, if you can just give all of us a quick summary of what you have been doing for many years, and what is your real purpose, and how do you contribute to this journey of creating a better world? Over to you, Nithya.
Thank you. So, Deeshana, firstly, thank you so much for having me. In terms of my background and my experience, so I've studied psychology, and in 2012, I decided I was going to embark on a coaching certification. And I think more than me realizing that I wanted to be a coach, I think it was the profession that called me. And so once I embarked upon it, I decided to set up my own company and to work with a lot of executives, senior leaders, even managers, in trying to navigate the challenges, like something like you've just shared right now, challenges that they face, not just at work, but also challenges that they're facing in their personal life. And in 2017, I set up my own company. At the same time, I decided to work as an external career coach at INSEAD. So I have been there supporting the MBA students on one-on-one career coaching for the last 5 years. I continue to love working with them, working with the very talented and capable MBAs. So whether they're based in Singapore or they're based in Fontainebleau in Paris, or they go to the exchange campuses in Wharton, I will open up all my slots, and I will follow them wherever they are in the world. So that's the commitment that we have to the students. I also serve as the president-elect with the International Coaching Federation Singapore chapter. So I served as a board member for the last 2 years, and just this year I stepped into the president-elect role. So there's a lot at any one point in time that's on my plate, but I think I wouldn't have it any other way. So very grateful for where we are and the people and the opportunities that have come my way.
Oh, that's amazing. I envy you, Nithya, because you have the opportunity to meet various type of people with their challenges, and then how you really get exposed to these situations also refines the way they wanted to proceed, and that's an amazing work. So Nithya, my first question to you is that before anyone moves into any change, it can be on a personal level, it can be as a C-suite in a business wants to change that business momentum and move into new change which is taking place. What's the first thing that you will focus on them?
Okay, this is such a
What's
great...
the most important thing? What's the most important thing that they need to start? Because I see a lot of people are going into different things like processes and etc. But what's the real thing that they need to start thinking before they do any change of that matter of execution?
Yeah, and that's a great question. because a lot of the clients that I am coaching at the moment is because there is some change that they have consciously, unconsciously, willing or unwillingly brought into their lives. So I think the first thing that I do if I was working with such a client is to get them to sit down and understand that even though it might be a very minor transition or a change warrants some form of inner rewiring. So just to give you an example, so one of the clients I'm currently coaching, I started coaching her during COVID in 2020. She finished with me, I think, for about 6 months or 8 months, and she came back again early this year, and she said she wanted to restart coaching. The coaching was, and she's a lawyer, the coaching was actually, the intention for her was to be able to present herself better and be able to work with different stakeholders, because she was working with people across functions, across markets, different time zones. But by the end of that first session, the realization was for her that actually she hasn't been cognizant of the fact that a major transition for her has happened. She's moved from an individual contribution role last year in June to now a people manager role. To her, that seemed like a natural evolution. And she almost had this belief that, I've been working for so long in my career. This is natural. I should be able to move into this and I should be able to deliver seamlessly. And yet, we had to sit down and recalibrate. You move from IC into people manager. What does that change really mean for you? And how much have you changed in order to bring about the outcomes that you need to deliver, which are different from previously? So the change doesn't necessarily need to be something large. Sometimes it could be something really simple that we take for granted, but it does require a certain recalibration.
Right. So I think, if I may summarize it, I think it's about change of mindsets, starting with the changing of your mindset, because limiting beliefs is something which you really focus, isn't it? Because before you go into anyone's transformation, you try to understand what are the limiting beliefs they have. Sometimes it comes in a fear factors, childhood trauma. I think I wouldn't think it's a right word to use, but what I meant, I just want to be authentic about it. It's just some of these things are listening in your mind. So you don't want to, you think either somebody would have said to you that, oh, I don't think you're capable of doing things. So it would have kept in their heart for a very long time. When they come to their real world activities, they think like, oh, I'm not good at this, because a lot of people said to me, they never even try and they just take a pushback because someone really, it has happened to me personally. I'm sure it has happened to many people that you have come across. So how do you break through that, Nithya? What's the approach you normally take in order to break that mindset and really make them free and think like, I can really do it. I have this in myself, but my environment have influenced me with this limiting belief. What's your advice on that?
Yeah. I mean, I can only speak for the way I support my clients. And I think,
Sure, of course.
step one for me is really, so the client will never come into the coaching session, whether it's a CEO or somebody who's even a director, will never come in with, I think my limiting belief is. So it's never given on a silver platter. So what happens is, Sasky, it's from that conversation where we're really trying to understand, what is this person trying to say? Where are they now? Because one of the things I can say, for sure is the current reality that my client has built is based on the beliefs they currently hold. And therefore, there is an attachment to the beliefs. And so if I were to go in and say, I think you need to shift your belief or change your belief, it almost comes like me telling them I know better. And that's not coaching. So the idea is, how do we get them to generate more awareness around the outcome that they want? And in order to achieve that outcome, which could mean a slight change in their reality, what is that inner shift that needs to happen? It could be a limiting belief. It could also just be replacing a belief with something completely different. Like as Marshall says in his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I think you and I referenced that book at the last time we spoke. But for any change that needs to happen in your personal life, in your professional life, in your relationship, the stimulus for that change comes from internal. Okay, so step one would be creating awareness around what is that limiting belief that's holding my client back. So recently, I was coaching a gentleman who said to me that he does not want to post anything on social media or on professional platforms because he doesn't like the idea of selling. Okay. So
Oh, right. Okay.
yeah. So to me, I realized then and there that that was a limiting belief. Okay, because it was holding him back from being able to talk about the things, about his practice, about his craft, about his beliefs, to a wider audience. So he wasn't leveraging the digital ecosystem and, the ways of working. We've gone global after COVID as well.
Of course.
Yeah. When he said that to me, my instinctive reaction to him was, okay, let's pause for a second. Why don't you tell me what you really mean by this? And let's go deeper into this. But by the end of that conversation, he was willing to replace that belief with, I need to be able to present myself, my practice, my credentials, my point of view in a way that resonates with my character and my belief. So we went from, I don't want to be selling to, I want to present myself in a certain way. So we shifted the belief in a way that would allow him to take steps in that direction because growing his business was his priority.
Yeah. That's brilliant, Nithya. I mean, this thing which I learned over the period of time, I have been in mostly in sales and marketing space, though I'm focused on sustainability but it's very much a driven to me. One of the things that I start to see, people don't want to feel that someone is selling something to them. So sometimes people think that selling is very bad, but it's not. It's just that you communicating what you can do and what you can create as a value rather than you trying to sell something for somebody. And that's where I think some of these people think, I don't want to be in the digital presence. I don't want to go vocal about it because I don't want to sell and so on. No, you're not selling, you're creating the value. How do you create your value? If you believe it's a value, then you capture the right people. And one thing I gather out of what you just said so far is that you create a good mindset, then only your motivations will come. Without the mindset, you can't get the motivation, because with the motivation, then you can get into the execution and the details and the methodologies, we call it. Because I see when I'm working on a sustainability space with C-suites or even with the middle management, they first goes into, so how do you do it? Show us how it's been done. I said, no, I don't start from there. I start from your mindset. Do you really believe in this? Do you believe that this has an impact in your business? If they don't believe it, how much methodology I give it to them, they're not going to resonate it. They will always find a reason to say, no, I don't believe in this. It won't work. The word, I don't believe in this. So moment they don't believe in, how much you try to convince them, it's not going to work. So similarly, that's why I find you as such an important resource. These guys needs to start at the tip of that thing. First, you need to break their beliefs. Right? That's why I really want to work with you also, because if you don't break that mindset, anything that you do, you can bring absolutely an amazing thing to the table in terms of methodology, how to get you and transform technology wise, process wise, change management wise. But if they don't believe it, it's not going to happen. So I would like to hear, is a similar context, Nithya, like how do you really, in a situation like that, they know, like, I know what to do. I remember you mentioned this to me when we had a one-to-one conversation a few months ago. How do you really break that? I'm very curious to know, because it's a talent itself. It's a psychological thing. As a psychological practitioner, because this is a psychological approach. How do you really break that? I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I think the way to approach such clients, and I'm trying to just think of an example that I could share with you over here. So
Yeah.
the one thing, and this is not something that I have developed, this is actually something that I attended. It was done by one of the professors at INSEAD a couple of years ago, but it stuck with me, Deeshana, because when you hear a more broad statement, a statement that has a lot of meaning, sometimes just hearing a statement like that gets us to redo things that we would otherwise have done in our normal and set ways. So I'll give you an example. So he talked about a framework called the PIE framework, PIE. Okay. And he referenced in that webinar, he referenced how typically senior female leaders, because I'm working with a lot of leaders and I'm working with a lot of business owners. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to attend that webinar. He says, typically when you look at very senior female leaders, he said the data shows that women focus a lot on performance. So the P in the pie stands for performance. Okay. And that's why women spend most of their time. In fact, 70 to 80% of the time is on making sure that the performance is on point, and therefore the skills are on point, competencies are on point, how they present themselves on point. But the other two aspects that's sometimes missing with women, but we see that is a little bit more present with men, is the I and the E. So the I stands for internal image. So here,
Right, okay.
he showed some data to say that men actually spend 33.5% or 33.3% of their time focusing on what is the kind of image they want to build for themselves internally. Okay? And the last aspect of that pie, which is the E, is the external visibility, which is what am I going to do from an industry perspective to make myself visible? Okay. So women typically spend most of our time, including myself, and that's why I think I resonated with that framework. We spend so much of time focusing on performance, the I and the E somehow gets let go of. But when you're being considered for that, maybe next promotion, that level up, additional responsibilities, it's the I and the E that have an equal important role to play. So when I share these frameworks, sometimes I don't have to tell my client, oh, I think you need to rethink. I just say, what does this mean for you? Is it sparking any new awareness? And that's when they'll come up and say, actually, yes, or maybe no. We could go both ways, but it does help them get new awareness. And from that awareness, it becomes something that they have discovered rather than something I am telling. Okay, it has to be, I think you come back to sustainability, right? We've talked about sustainability quite a bit. And I firmly believe in order for coaching to work, the results have to be sustainable. Okay? And in order for it to be sustainable change, so the moment the coach is out of the picture, the individual still needs to be able to be motivated and driven to sustain that change. That comes through self-discovery.
That's definitely, I resonate that. If it's very difficult, it's easy to motivate somebody with a short-term incentive, but in order to it to maintain and be consistent with that motivation, it's a different thing, and it's very individualized, and they have to really take that initiation, because you can come out and give all that motivation, but it'll go up at that moment when they're having that conversation with you, maybe perhaps from a couple of days, far as they remember what you said, and then they get back to the same routine. Everything that was being built is lost, but they have to, that self-discovery, awareness, those are the two keywords which I start to learn is the most important thing. If you miss that part, then you miss everything, isn't it? So, yeah. Now, Nithya, exactly. Now, one of the things that, now, if you really think about in terms of what you just spoke, the motivation, the mindset, breaking silos, and also breaking your mindset. The reason why this question that I wanted to ask you is that the reason why is that it's very hard to quantify, measure, because a lot of people find it like, oh, how do you measure that? How do you measure your motivation? How do you measure that your change is adding value in order to continue to be motivated? Like, say, for instance, if I may say, I mean, this is easy for you, but for the audience perspective, I'm asking this. If you say you change your mindset from where you are, because first you understand where you want to go, what you want to achieve, what is your result that you want to create, and then you map out your mindset to say whether you are capable of achieving that. Then you realize this is my gap, and then you elevate your mindset to achieve that. But people are finding it difficult to quantify that. How do you measure that, Nithya? Because that's where I think sometimes people don't believe it, because everything is measurable now. Everybody's like calculating, analyzing it. You get what I'm saying, right? So how do you really help them to measure that part?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think ROI and coaching continues to be an important topic because companies are investing so much of money that, like you said, the change has to be sustainable. And that's an important aspect of it. So there are a couple of different ways in which, at least within my practice, I try to build this sort of ability to collect this data and information. So one is to make sure that before the coaching engagement begins, so I will have a conversation with the manager of the individual and the HR to try and understand what's the baseline with that individual at the moment, okay, and what is the change that they are seeking. Okay? And I make sure that it is in alignment. Because one of the things I realize that if it's a corporate sponsored engagement, very often the individual might want a different outcome and the company might want a different outcome for them. So that alignment ends up being the first step for us to be able to track and measure how well we are moving forward and are we on the same page to begin with. Okay. The second aspect of that would be to sit with the client and be able to understand from their perspective, has something changed within them? Because for coaching to work, we have to be able to scratch beneath the surface. We have to go down to the roots of the person. And I always give this analogy to my clients. And I say, imagine yourself as this tree and this beautiful, strong, big tree with beautiful leaves and branches. And what people see from the outside is the color of the bark and where you're placed and how green and luscious your leaves are. And that is everything that you're presenting. That's your behavior. That's your habits. That's your voice and your tone and your presence. But what people don't see are the roots. And if those roots are serving you, I would say there's nothing that you need to change. And I do work with a lot of clients where things are going really well, but they want to figure out what does a level up look like, which is absolutely fine. But for individuals that are seeking a change, we don't focus on the behavior and the habit, which is everything that you see about the tree. We focus on the root. The root is the belief, because everything we do at this point in our lives is connected to a belief we hold. And in order for that change to be sustainable, we have to challenge and question that belief. Okay. So we'll go back to the client and sit down with them and try to understand what has changed within them, what are the new beliefs that they're willing to hold on to, and slowly take them to that path of trying different things. This could be small actions for trying different things. For example, if it's a client who previously never spoke in a boardroom, it would be getting them to start speaking up, maybe asking a question or maybe even commenting on somebody else's question or somebody else's point of view, or even perhaps recognizing somebody and saying, oh, I think that was such a good point. So we get people to start flexing a new muscle and be comfortable with that small flex until they get more confident. And at the end of the day, when we sit down with HR and the hiring manager and we sit down with the individual to really try and understand, this is where we started. Where do you think you are now? Are your colleagues sensing any change? Are you sensing any change? And we use a lot of the reflection tools to be able to surface some of those answers.
Oh, that's powerful. That's amazing. When I was listening, which was running in my mind is that you're helping them to make minute, very incremental, small changes in their behavior and their thinking. And you're changing them without even them knowing that they're changing. And that makes them comfortable. And then you can make that consistent because they're not completely pushed to a very uncomfortable or a rapid transformation, but you're making small changes, and that small change is over a period of time without knowingly you have transformed. I'm right to say that, Nithya? Is that the approach that you take? That's it. That's amazing. That's amazing. Anyone can do that, isn't it? Because with that, I have a very good example, which I actually saw this on online. Someone has basically shared this. I'm not too sure. I haven't done any deep research about whether it is far true, but it really stuck in my mind. He says that build your life like a Chinese bamboo tree. And then I was going through that, and he was just talking about the Chinese bamboo tree in the first 60 months. I don't know whether it is 60 months. It has to be 60 months. It can't be 60 days, but 16 months. It goes really deep You don't even see a shoot coming out of earth. It's growing underneath. And then when it starts to shoot the first thing, it takes less than 1 month, between 29 and 30 days, 31 days, if I say, it grew 90 feet.
Wow.
And what it was basically saying is that all that long years, it's preparing for a rapid growth. And I see these characters in my circle of friends and etc. And people that I also have seen. We see people just coming up without even seeing them. You don't see them because they have been urinating themselves underneath and suddenly just come. So these increments that you're talking about, it resonates with me in terms of like a Chinese bamboo tree. They're like developing, putting a strong foundation, and suddenly they come to a level and they're rapidly growing because they have now built the entire skill which they need to grow and dominate that domain. That's amazing, Nithya. That's just amazing. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. And just to add to that, that what you've just shared is everybody's reality is different, Deeshna. So
Correct.
to me, might seem like, oh, this is such a simple thing. Why aren't you doing it? I realize that, and because everybody's point of reference is so different, their context is so different. It's very important as a coach not to tell people to do A, B, or C, but to understand where are they coming from. And once we start understanding where are they coming from, then it's about making sure that we support them in getting them to where they want to be. It has to be their goal. It has to be something that they want while we support and guide along the way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a deep level of empathy. You start with a deep level of empathy, and then you understand where they're coming from, their reality, their awareness. So it comes with a lot of patience, I believe, when you're trying to engage. And I'm sure you will enjoy doing that because it's not something which it has to be something very, very deep within you to understand this type of situations and help. And after you start seeing them growing and achieving things that they wanted to achieve, the satisfaction, the fulfillment that you receive must be enormous.
It is, absolutely. But I also keep in mind this thing of, an unconditional positive regard. Because some clients will be very vocal and say, and be outright and say, oh, this was so good. Some clients, you may not hear anything for a while, and then it may resurface in 18 or 20 months and say, you know what, we discussed this. And because of this, it took me time to do it and believe in it, but I'm on that path. So every human being is so different. Everybody's reality is so different. The intention is to support, to just have that unconditional regard and not be attached, so that they can be free to share whatever it is they need and want to share in that session.
Yeah, yeah. Um, with the time that I just have two questions lined up. Where do you see? I'm just not going to really focus on the younger generation perspective. We spoke a little bit of people who are in the C-suite level, who are in the middle age and so on, and how do you really break their mindsets. But what's a message that you would like to share the younger generations who is just coming out of uni, trying to build a career for themselves, when they're just looking around, like, what's the path I need to take, and am I to take of a technology path which is AI, and am I will be obsolete in another couple of years? How do you think that with the technology rise, the human intelligence and human behavior and technology, where do you think that everybody needs to upskill themselves? I don't know whether it is something which is important at this stage to think, but it's going to come at some point soon.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think so I do work with, because I'm at INSEAD, so I do work with a lot of youngsters as well. And one of the things is realizing that they're not alone. A lot of the youngsters, including people in their mid-careers, are going through the same question, which is, what's next in store for me? So I've started to sort of advise them and say, let's look at a 3 to 5 year window. No longer do we need to be looking at, uh, cryptograph. While those were careers in the past, I think it's important to keep shifting so that one's comfortable with the change that the shift brings. And when I say shifting, it's not just, I'm not just talking about um, maybe doing a role in a certain market and moving to another market and doing a similar role. I'm actually saying change in terms of functional experience as well. Because the whole ladder career, I think specializing in one thing, going really deep, yes, has been increasingly valuable to companies. But I think for individuals, it hasn't always served them well because there's so much of change and so much of disruption. If one continues, imagine your career, or they say as a jungle gym, you can continuously start to enjoy the different, all the different games that you see in the playground. So, you don't necessarily have to be on that ladder. You can be on a swing, you can be on a slide. But the more you can start exposing yourself to different skills and different functions, I think one will be better poised to deal with the change that's coming ahead of us.
Right. Thank you, Nithya, for that. My last question is that with all these changes taking place, again, specifically on the younger generation, we see a lot of destruction taking place, cyberbullying, they're being cornered, and there's a lot of challenges are going through. What's the most important thing for them in terms of that? And then I want to see your perspective and maybe validate it from you. Do you believe that emotional intelligence is one of the most important things to develop as a skill in day and age and ever before? Priya, what your takes and thoughts about that?
Okay. So coming to the first question, okay, I would say because I've got teenage kids as well, I think the most important thing that I'm seeing as a parent is connection. And the more the child starts to gravitate towards a digital world, I think the more we need to start making efforts to connect with them in a way that they feel the connection with us. Because the reality is, in order for us to be able to bring a healthy teenager into this world, they will start associating more with others and therefore by default associating less with their own family and perhaps relatives. So how do we keep that connection alive with them? And the moment that connection is alive, I think the child really feel that support, that love, that unconditional positive regard.
How do you create that, Nitya? How do you really create that? How do you get them like? So the world is fully connected, but people are disconnected. Like, so they are always engaging with people on social media, chatting to them, putting likes and etc., doing all sorts of things. But they miss out the person who is seated next to them. They don't even have a conversation. They don't even greet them. They just come sit and just open their mobile phone or their tab or whatever they have as a device, and they're completely engaged with that. They don't even know what's in their right or in their left. How do you get that engagement happen?
Yeah. And look, I think that's a great question. But I also know every child is so different. So with our girls, what we did is I started to bring them with me to do more of my social work with animals. Because I have a strong belief that
Okay.
when a child starts to see that they can save lives, that they can, that their contributions are so valuable, I believe that's a turning point that they will start engaging more in other things beyond the digital world. So I started taking the younger one and she comes with me and she helps me running all the booths for SOSD, Save Our Street Dogs. She started making bracelets and selling bracelets. I think she raised about $1,200. But even raising $10 suddenly made her realize, oh, I didn't, Mama, I didn't realize that, and then she also asked this question, what is our money going to be used for? So when I took her to the shelter, she saw what the money was being used for. So there was that sense that she could make a difference. So that was a turning point for the younger one. For the older one as well, during COVID, she started painting. And with all the, I think she took up all paintings. With all the paintings she did, everything went to charity. And again, it was just for her to realize that every talent you have in this world could be monetized for something good.
That's just amazing. Yeah, I can add a similar experience with my elder daughter. For her birthday, she asked me I asked her, what do you want to do for your birthday? So I was expecting she will tell me like, oh, I wanted to invite my friends and, have a usual thing, But instead of this, she said that, oh, I wanted to do a donation and feed street dogs. And she went to a street dog shelter, which people can just, take the street dogs. Otherwise, they will be killed. So they take it and they feed them. So she went and spent half a day looking after, and I felt that was such a deep connection with. It's a different approach to it. So now I hear what you're saying, and I never thought about it in that way, but I start to realize it that need to do more and more of something. Last one, I think we're running out of time. The last thing is on emotional intelligence, Nithya. If you can just tell me something about that, is something even applies to all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think with how much things are transforming at work, even within relationships, I think one of the most important factors is obviously going to be critical thinking and emotional intelligence. Just one's ability to relate to other people, one's self-awareness of how we are showing up and the impact we are having on others, and how our emotions can either uplift people or do the opposite, which I hope doesn't happen, has a huge part to play in the relationships that we build and the connections we have, and in how we can influence people to get things done. So I think you're spot on. EQ will continue to be a very, very important aspect. And I also believe when one is thinking about mental well-being at work, if we start harnessing and giving people different tools that can help them just be able to manage their emotions better, maybe they're dealing with others who are not able to cope as much as well as them, that would go a long way in colleagues being there for one another. That would go a long way in having a much more compassionate and caring culture. And all that starts from the words we use, the tone we have, and how we speak to people, and that comes down to EQ. So I think it has a huge role to play for sure.
Oh, thank you very much, Nithya. It has been fantastic having you, and I think I learned a lot from you in this few minutes. It's amazing. So, what's the final message you like to leave behind for all of us?
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me, Deeshana. I think the final message to everybody would be, you're not alone. And if there's something you're feeling, something you're sensing, always reach out and have a conversation, because it's that one conversation that can change things around, and there will always be people around to support.
Correct. With that note, I think it's a very positive note. Connecting with people and sharing what you're going through, it's very critical. Sometimes people think that they don't want to do it because they think that they will be judged, but I'm sure there is enough or more people who won't judge you, and they will really hear you and then try to support you. And when we are moving into more and more transformation things, I believe, as I said earlier, people like you is more important for in the corporate world. So I'm going to just put a description of you, and people can connect with you and have a conversation with you. So that's something I'm going to share. Thank you once again, Nithya, for your time. Really appreciate it. I knew you just flew in to Singapore this morning from a long flight, but you still gave your time to share your thoughts and share your inputs. It's amazing, and thank you. I'm really grateful, and hope to have a chat with you very soon. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Deeshana. It was a pleasure to be with you here. Thank you.